Good evening. This meeting of the Tomball ISD Board of Trustees here on Tuesday, February 11th, 2025, Central Time, is called to order at 5:31 p.m. Central. For the record, a quorum of the board is present. All trustees are in attendance tonight. This meeting is being recorded in accordance with Government Code Section 551.128. And we would like to welcome those who are in attendance tonight. I see some different faces in the crowd. Welcome. And certainly for those viewing the online recording, welcome. The Board of Trustees' role is to set goals. We review reports. We approve a budget. We approve contracts and personnel appointments, and we establish policies for this district. It is the superintendent's role and responsibility to handle the day-to-day operations of this district. Policies and procedures are in place to address any concerns. This is a business meeting of the Board of Trustees that is open to the public. However, it is not a meeting of the public. Public participation is limited to designated times during the meeting for citizen comment for those who have registered to speak in accordance with our board procedures. We ask for your cooperation in ensuring that the meeting runs in an orderly manner. Board members have received items related to tonight's agenda and have had the opportunity in Monday night's workshop meeting last night, which was a very lengthy meeting. We had the opportunity to ask questions of the superintendent related to those agenda items. Items on the agenda for tonight's meeting may not be handled in the order of the agenda. Additionally, if the board determines at any point during the meeting that it needs to convene an executive session, the board will do so in accordance with sections 551.071 through 551.084 of the Texas Government Code. So opening remarks this evening will be by Amanda Bass. Pledges will be by Tina Salem. And the mission statement will be by Coco White. And so I'll turn it over to Ms. Bass for opening remarks.
Hi, good evening. I'd like to offer a prayer, so if you would stand and bow your head. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for the opportunity to gather here this evening. I'm grateful for the dedicated teachers, staff, administrators, and families who make Tomball ISD the incredible sought-after district that it is. Their hard work and commitment to our students do not go unnoticed, and I ask that you continue to bless and strengthen them. Please guide our discussions tonight. Help us have productive conversations that lead to meaningful, well-thought-out decisions, ones that will benefit all 23,000 students in Tomball ISD. Give us wisdom, clarity, and discernment as we work together in service of our schools and community. I also pray for protection and guidance over our students, teachers, staff, and every family in this district. Please keep them safe, give them peace, and remind them that they are valued and supported. In your name we pray, amen.
Amen.
First, to pledge the United States flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Tomball ISD empowers students to become impactful, contributing citizens by providing innovative, individually rigorous, and personally valuable educational experience while partnering with the community.
Thank you very much. So, I know we've got some reports. Here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go with the reports first.
Okay.
And then we'll do public comments on agenda items. And then we'll progress into the agenda. And then we'll have comments on non-agenda items after that. So to set everyone's expectation. So at this time, I'd like to turn the meeting over to our Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Martha Salazar Zamora, for reports.
Thank you so much, President Dr. Pratt, members of the board, those of you in the audience tonight. We do have one report, and that is the annual fund balance report. Our Chief Financial Officer, Zach Bowles, will lead us in this presentation. If you were here last evening, his presentation was 3 hours and 20 minutes. We suspect this will be just a little bit longer. I'm teasing. It will be significantly shorter. He doesn't have companions with him. Mr. Bowles.
I definitely promise this will be shorter.
I suspected such.
Well, good evening, President Pratt, Dr. Salazar-Zamora, members of the board. Tonight, I will be presenting on our annual fund balance report. This is a report that is required under Board Policy CE Local and is required to be given annually after the approval of the district's annual financial report. And so what that requires is that myself, as the Chief Financial Officer, I'm required to prepare a report listing the fund balances by amount and by type, and also to address compliance with Board Policy CE Local and the requirement that the district maintain a minimum reserves in both our assigned and unassigned fund balances. So keeping in mind that this report is going to focus on our fund balances as of the end of the fiscal year 2023-2024. So June 30th, 2024 is what's going to be shown when we talk about the numbers in this presentation. CE Local requires that at a minimum, the district shall maintain assigned and unassigned fund balances equal to or exceeding 3 months of average operating expenditures of the current budget. So 3 months or 25%, that's the requirement. So we need to end the fiscal year with that percentage of the next year's budget. As of June 30th, 2024, our audited fund balances showed non-spendable fund balances of just under $1 million. That non-spendable fund balance is going to be related to inventories, prepaid items like insurances, travel, things that we have to pay for up front before they're received that may occur after the end of the fiscal year, but have to be paid for in advance. So that's going to be reported under non-spendable fund balances. Under restricted fund balances at $3.1 million, that's going to identify programs that have been state mandated. Specifically for Tomball ISD, that $3.1 million is referring to the CTE allotment that we received from the state and the required spending that's associated with those funds, and requirement by the state that those funds be restricted solely for that purpose. So with the restriction of fund balances, that means that the use of those funds have to be authorized and released by the board before that money can be spent. So typically we do that at the beginning of each fiscal year. We come to the board and we request to release the restricted fund balances for the use in the current year. Committed fund balances are the highest level of authority that the Board of Trustees has when it comes to fund balances and the use. So the $36.9 million there represents the $36 million that has been set aside for future construction projects. That was done in 2021 for assistance with what we saw coming with the bond 2021, the increased construction costs that came out of COVID and the inflation that occurred there. Along with that, the $934,000 additional, that was the remaining funds from Strategic Plan 2025. So those were the funds left over after the completion of that strategic plan. As of June 30th, all of that was still held within committed fund balances. Again, under committed fund balances, that requires to be designated as committed. That's going to require adoption of a resolution by the board. And then to spend those funds, it's also going to require approval by the board to release funds for spending on those purposes. That number will have changed at this point in the year because earlier this fiscal year, I believe in September, board took action to release some of that committed fund balance and as well as recommit to Strategic Plan 2030. Under assigned fund balances, $1.3 million, assigned just means that it hasn't risen to the level of a restricted fund balance or a committed fund balance, but we have those assigned fund balance identified for a specific purpose. That $1.3 million for us represents purchase orders that had been placed, but items that had not been received as of the close of the fiscal year in June 30th. So those items are required to be set aside, and the funding for those items that were initiated through a purchase order required to be set aside within fund balance and designated as assigned for the next year. The unassigned fund balances represent what's left. That's spendable fund balance that's not identified in one of the other categories there. And so you see that 68.7 million is what is identified as unassigned fund balances. So to meet the requirement of board policy CE local, we needed to have 3 months or 25% held in reserves under assigned or unassigned designation. At just over 70 million, we do meet that requirement under board policy. We have 3.77 months available, and so that roughly estimates to 31.4% of the current year's operating budget. So what is a school district fund balance? It is not a rainy day fund. It's not a savings account. This is a true accounting measurement that measures the difference between assets and liabilities at a snapshot at a given point in time. For us, that is the end of the fiscal year on June 30th each year. So that means that over the course of a year, any given month, that number could fluctuate. It does fluctuate. It's dependent upon the revenues that are being brought in by the district, the funding that's being received, as well as the expenditures that are going out. So payments for supplies and materials, payroll costs. Each month there's a little bit of a differential, and so that fund balance, if you took a snapshot each month, is going to fluctuate. Keeping in mind that from a revenue standpoint, we receive about 50% of our funding from local property taxes, another 48% from the state. And so those two payments occur at completely separate times. We see the bulk of our state funding come in August and September, and then not again until the following June, July, and August. And so in that time period, before we get to the collection of property taxes in November, December, January, you're not bringing in revenue into the district. You're spending because you have expenses for payroll, you have expenses for supplies and materials, contracted services, but you're not bringing in revenue during those times. And so the fund balance is there to support that. So getting into the purpose of maintaining the fund balance really starts there, but in CE local, the board policy, it states that the district should retain sufficient reserves to ensure against unanticipated events that may adversely affect the financial condition of the district and jeopardize continuation of services. A lot of times we think about that as impacts from weather-related events. We look back to Hurricane Harvey, Hurricane Beryl. Our most impactful was Winter Storm Uri. And so having fund balance on hand allowed us to quickly address issues that had arose, make repairs to busted pipes, and make sure that we were able to get operations back up and running as quickly as possible. We didn't have to wait for insurance to come in and assess the damage and give us a check for damages. We didn't have to rely on FEMA to go through the process for reimbursement. We were able to address those needs immediately and then seek reimbursement through those processes. So again, continuing on with just why you have that fund balance, obviously with the weather, but beyond weather events, those unexpected items, over the last 2 years, we've adopted deficit budgets. That has been in response to a stagnating state funding formula where that's been left at at $6,160 per student since 2019. Costs have done nothing but rise. The inflation we've experienced is almost over 20% at this point, with no change to state funding formulas. And so the fund balance has been there to support the district as we navigate financial uncertainty when it comes to state funding. And we've been able to utilize that for the continuation of operations of the district, making sure that we continue to meet the needs of our students and operate at the level of excellence that the community expects of Tomball ISD. And then we talked a little bit about this last night. The district maintains a AA+ rating with all three major credit rating agencies. That's Moody's, S&P, as well as Fitch. Part of what they look at is the level of fund balance that the district has, the amount of reserves that we have to accommodate and take care of unforeseen needs, just the financial stability. And so having a fund balance where we maintain it, the board policy requiring 25% be set aside there, that is what has, as one component of why we've been able to reach that AA+ standing with all three of those rating agencies. Beyond the general fund, though, that has an impact to bonds and debt service. When we do go out to issue debt, our rating, our AA+ rating, helps us get lower interest rates. We draw in more investors, and the interest rates, we have the ability to get those lower than if we had a lower credit rating. So over time, that's substantially reduced the interest costs that we've paid on our debt. Typically, we would go about making recommendations at this time as well, but right now, given the legislative session that's in process at the moment, we're not recommending any changes at this time, but we do think that based on the progress of the legislative session, that we would likely come back to the board, make some recommendations as we move forward throughout the rest of the fiscal year. Any questions?
No questions, but a comment. Can you go back to the Moody's and S&P rating side? So I have a neighbor who is an older gentleman that purposely moved into Tomball ISD. No children in the district. He's a taxpayer, but he shared with me recently that he purposely buys Tomball ISD bonds for the certainty and surety as he progresses into the retirement stage of his life. And so that's the first time I've ever heard that. And I thought that was impressive, that not only is he a resident, but he's got confidence, and he's basing his retirement on the ability of our school district to be good on these ratings. And so it's a feel-good moment maybe, but something important that I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Zach, got one question for you. So, where is the self-funded insurance amount? Where is that located? It's not in fund balance?
This is specifically looking at the general fund, and so the set aside for self-insurance is contained within a self-insurance fund, separate from the general fund. What we do there is we pay ourselves a premium each year,
Right.
and so the premium that's paid is within the general fund budget.
Comes out of the general fund budget, but it's housed in a separate fund?
That's correct.
Gotcha, thank you.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it very much, Mr. Bowles. Good job. At this time, I will turn the meeting back over to Dr. Pratt, our president.
Thank you, we appreciate it. Okay, so now we're going to proceed with public comment on agenda items. And so I have some things I need to read, but just for the board's knowledge, on agenda items, we have 8 individuals that have signed up to speak, and it's a cross-section of parents, taxpayers, vendor on that list. First up will be Alan Muir, followed by Dan Cranford, and then Rebecca Macciola. And I'll try to update those so you know kind of where you are in the lineup. So, Mr. Muir, are you here? Hi, okay. You're more than welcome to make your way to the microphone here on my right. I need to read a statement, and then I'll give you the time to go, okay? Great. The board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. However, speakers are required to conduct themselves with proper respect and decorum in addressing the Board of Trustees and in all conduct during a board meeting. Individuals who do not conduct themselves in an orderly and appropriate manner will receive a verbal warning and may be asked to leave the meeting. We added this to the script as a result of last night's conversation. The following are meeting protocols and rules of decorum established by the board. The public comment period will not be used to air personal grievances, make political endorsements, or for political campaign purposes, nor discuss matters which are the subject of public hearings. Speakers shall address all comments to the board as a whole and not to individual trustees. Discussions between the speakers and members of the audience shall not be allowed. This time is for receipt of public comment, not debate. The board will not enter into a dialogue with citizens because it's not on the agenda. Questions from the board will be for clarification purposes only. Public comment will not be used as a time for problem solving or reacting to comments made, but rather for hearing the citizens for informational purposes only. The board may assign staff to provide information requested by a speaker during the public comment period. The board may elect to defer public comment on specific issues that appear on the regular agenda until that specific item is addressed. Anger, rudeness, ridicule, obscene and profane language, impatience, and lack of respect for others, and personal attacks are not acceptable behavior. Demonstrations in support or opposition to a speaker or idea are just not permitted. The board president is responsible for maintaining order, and I have Officer Munoz here to assist. Failure to abide by this requirement may result in the forfeiture of the speaker's right to speak. In the event that the board president's discretions are not followed, our school resource officer may be utilized to maintain that order. So the board asks that each participant's comments pertain to the agenda item identified on the public comment form and be no longer than 3 minutes. Speakers who are addressing more than one agenda may have an additional minute. For any member of the public who is accompanied by a translator, your time will be doubled as required by law. And it's my understanding that there's not a need. Okay. We will utilize an electronic timer visible on the right side of the speaker's platform. The first 1 minute will be displayed in green. An audible tone will sound when the speaker has 1 minute remaining, and the display will change to yellow. Another tone will sound when 10 seconds remain, and the display will change to red. At the end of the 3 minutes, an audible tone will sound to end the session. Remember that the board does not or may not discuss or act upon any issues that are not posted on the agenda. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns for employees, students, or their parents and the general public. Copies of our district policy and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on our district website. Thank you for your concern regarding our school district, and we will hear from you now. Mr. Muir, you have 3 minutes, and when you're ready, let's go.
So, if I'm to understand, I get double the time if I speak in Dutch or Spanish.
I don't think you told us that ahead of time, so we're going with 3 minutes. I appreciate your ability to speak multiple languages. I'm going to go ahead and start the clock.
So, I'm here to speak on behalf of Tomball High School athletic programs in regards to whether it be the bond that's coming up for vote or any of the budgetary items that you may or may not have appropriated on their behalf. This is specifically on behalf of the Tomball High School natatorium renovations that we're looking or hoping to get appropriations for. Tomball athletic programs have been a level of excellence in football and soccer and softball and whatever else is out there. But for many years, the natatorium has been overlooked and the programs that are supported around that. I'm near and dear to my heart. I have a swimmer in high school. She is a 2-time state participant in natatorium. I also had a son that graduated from Tomball High School who went, in football back-to-back years and was supported with a great, stadium. But when we look at the swimming and the aquatics program, the natatorium was built a long time ago. And there is a fairness and competition that we ask for that natatorium to be supported. The blocks are behind with other natatoriums around the ISDs. The size, the stadium support is behind. And I know we missed a bond deal for a big natatorium to be built out by the stadium, the football stadium. go Cougs. But many, many years go by without any support for the coaches that come. And those coaches are teachers, and they give themselves a lot of personal time to help these kids and develop these kids. You know what I'm talking about. You have a daughter, I think, or a son. I'm looking at you, mister. You're great, and you bring these budgets together, and there are a lot of students that come in here. What I get nervous about is, and I'm in Creekside, I live in Creekside, I get nervous about the kids that have parents that move them up to the Woodlands or to, the Woodlands. I know 5 parents that move their kids out of there 10 seconds to have their kids go swim for the Woodlands. We have 3 state swimmers this year. We should have 17 next year. That's it. Thank you.
We appreciate your comments. Up next is Mr. Dan Cranford, followed by Rebecca Macciola, and then Megan Jasper. When you're ready, Mr. Cranford, I'll start the clock.
Good evening, Board. Thank you for changing the rules. Appreciate y'all. I want to start out, we're going to talk about the bond, but I want to start out by reading an excerpt from an email that I received from the President of the Board. In closing, I'm starting now. In closing, I wanted to provide an additional consideration that we all must be cognizant of in dealing with business awards with local government entities like Tomball ISD. Of course, you would know this already. School board members have legal obligations to avoid conflicts of interest and illegal activities when it comes to business awards. I want to ensure that there is never conflict of interest. I understand that our voters, including you, expect our local elected officials to uphold the highest standards by not being involved in or even creating the perception of influencing the award of business. You can expect our board to have training on this subject in 2025 so that all 7 are aligned on Tomball ISD procurement process. I hope you understand. I understand very well. And I told you I would bring you some information that I think proves some conflicts of interest. But first I want to ask some questions. On this bond, one thing I didn't see in the presentation was who will be the bond program manager. Is that going to still be LAN? I understand that the husband of our superintendent works there.
Okay. I gave you a warning last night. I'm going to give you one warning. And to call out something specific is
I didn't call
inappropriate.
anyone by name.
Okay.
You're proving to your voters right now. I'm bringing up public information that we can all find on Google. Okay?
I'm giving you a fair warning.
Okay. Okay. And I mean, you threatened me with the police officer behind me before I came up with your new little deal. It's all good. Also, the Chromebooks. What iteration of the Chromebooks are we going to be buying? Are those HP? Because I was told HP was hard spec in this district and there was no moving it. That was by your technology department. Here we go. I'll just leave these here for you guys to look at. Who's benefiting from HP sales? It's right there for you. Let's go further to the bidding process. I sent you an email just a few minutes ago. You should have it. Your bidding process, it's all out of whack. You told the voters in January that you got 3 competitive bids for the security upgrades. I looked into those bids. One of them was sent to a company very late in the process. They replied that they didn't have time to even estimate it. The other group, I'm very dear friends with out of San Antonio, I know very well how that went down. They're not even Genetec certified. They couldn't even give you a competitive bid. So really, you got 1 bid. We need to fix that bidding process before we pass this bond so that we know we're getting a fair price on all of the stuff that you're asking for.
Thank you, Mr. Cranford. Let's see. Rebecca Macciola is next, followed by Megan Jasper, and then Daisy Cohn. What's that? Okay, got it. So after Ms. Jasper will be Stacy Barron. When you're ready, Ms. Messola.
Good evening. My name is Rebecca Macciola, and I don't know how many of you know this, but I've spent my entire life in education. I've been a teacher in public, private, and I even homeschooled for a little bit, having to take my kids out at certain times when it was what I needed to do for my family. However, I've spent the last 7 years in Tomball ISD as an active volunteer in various roles. Currently, I'm serving on SHAC, Tomball High School NJROTC Vice President, and Senior Parent Organization President, which I did not know how much I was getting into. I was also on the 2025 Bond Steering Committee. These roles have given me the opportunity to work with students, teachers, and administrators and witness firsthand how we really all have to work together to make a public school district run. As the bond committee, we chose the most needed items and placed the bond in the order we thought they were the most needed. As board members, you were elected to represent the community as a whole. These items listed are what the Tomball ISD community wants. They range from things we rarely see, like replacing vacuums, refrigerators, to bigger items like multi-program facilities. These in particular were discussed in depth during our bond committee meetings because many of us were not on board with paying so much for a space that sport teams could practice in extreme weather. When we questioned the need for this, it was explained to the bond committee that these spaces are not only for football, but to cover a huge percentage of Tomball ISD's extracurricular activities, of which our high school students, the majority of them are in extracurricular activities. If you have a student in band, drill, color guard, cheer, choir, football, soccer, and I'm sure I'm missing a few more, you know how many rehearsals and practices are missed because of extreme heat or crazy storms. This is not about keeping up with the Joneses, but the safety of our students who are involved in sports and fine arts. The mission of public schools is to educate all students. Many of our students only come to and stay in school because of our extracurricular activities. They do better in academics because they have the support of a group to help them make better grades so they can play in the games, they can compete in the UIL competitions. Whether it's fine arts, sports, ROTC, or FFA, our extracurricular departments are teaching our children valuable qualities that to succeed in life after high school. Bond projects are wanted and needed by the community. The only way to fund them as a parent is to go through the process. Please choose what is best for our students. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Macciola. Up next is Ms. Megan Jasper, followed by Stacy Barron, and then Suzanne Swiderski. Ms. Jasper, when you're ready.
I don't have a big speech written out for this one. I have one for the public comment on the non-agenda items. But for this one, specifically regarding the multi-use facility, I believe that that is 100% a want and not a need. Fun fact, you may not know that I was a competitive tennis player and played in college, went to college on a tennis scholarship. So, and I used to teach tennis and a whole history of it. So one of the issues when I heard the presentation about the multi-use facility was about folks training indoors. That is not going to work in Texas. It is hot outside. You play outside. I played my tennis matches outside, so I practiced outside to build up my stamina and to be able to compete. These football players, if they practice indoors and they go out and have their actual games, if they practice indoors and they have their games outdoors, they're actually, I think, going to be less safe because they're not going to be prepared for this heat. The same with the band folks. If they're practicing indoors and then they go outdoors and they're wearing all their gear, you're going to see kids passing out. And I think this goes for soccer. It goes for all of the different sports. I just think it's just not a good idea for competitive players that are going to go to the next level, that are going to go to college, because they're going to practice outside. And that's it. So I just think that that one is definitely more of a want and not a need. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jasper. Okay, in our order here, Stacy Barron, Suzanne Swiderski, and then Mark Segaloff. When you're ready, Ms. Barron.
Sorry, I'm going to read fast. All right, good evening. I would like to encourage each of you to please put the bond on the May ballot. There have been some misconceptions out there to the public. First, I was on the bond committee. I was able to see that our tax rate will not increase, although Harris and Montgomery County might increase property values. That has nothing to do with our school district, and owners are able to protest the valuations each year. As a real estate agent and mom in the district, I see the value that Tomball ISD needs in putting students first and making sure that not only are we providing a safe environment, but also one that will be a good investment. My question is, how much is a student's life worth? I would give more than what the bond is asking for. It doesn't raise taxes, so it makes it a no-brainer for me to help students and provide safer environments without a tax hike. We have buses that are past their lifespan that are constantly needing repairs. We have to bus students to a district further away for a program that we can set up in our own district and provide a service for surrounding district students to generate revenue. We have multiple things across campuses that are way past their lifespan that are other safety necessities, not just for the students, but the community at large. Due to state constraints, the district cannot state that they are for safety purchases, but trust me, they are. Have you been to a baseball game where a foul ball shot through a net and hit someone in the head? I have at one of our campuses. Have you seen the condition of junior high fields or grassy areas that groundskeepers and coaches constantly work on to make it safer for everyone? Has your child had to be in a building that is in dire need of repairs and updates, TIS being one of them? Has your student had to have their activities canceled due to excessive heat or other unsafe conditions? Why would you not want a safe building that provides protection as well as revenue opportunities for our district? Our district needs to start looking for ways to generate revenue, and multi-program buildings are a way our district can capitalize on that. Speaking of this, I am discouraged to see that the multi-purpose facilities are slated to be 50 yards. This is like me stating that I have a boat, but my boat doesn't float. If we want these buildings to be used for what we're actually calling them, multi-program, we need to make sure that they are constructed at over 88,200 square feet. They do not need to have air conditioning in these buildings. They can be airflow construction, which is common in the majority of districts that have these facilities. Do those that recommend the size speak to campus band, drill team, coaches, or even other districts with these facilities? They are extremely common in the Dallas-Fort Worth area and unusual if your district does not have them up there. In my conversations with districts throughout Texas, many have stated football actually uses these facilities less than any other group at their school. Emphasis should be on multi-purpose. We cannot properly use these buildings at 50 yards as a band would not fit. We're a 6A school and 3A schools have bigger facilities than what we propose. With changes to our district education funding, our district needs to start looking for ways to generate revenue, and these buildings are a way the district can capitalize on that. If we construct at 50 yards, they will not be usable space for many of the clientele that we would actually have. I urge our central administration and our school board to contact districts that have these facilities, such as Melissa, Crowley, etc. I can email my research, and I can go on and on why the bond is needed in May, so feel free to call me.
Thank you, Mrs. Barron. Okay, up next is Suzanne Swiderski, followed by Mark Segaloff. When you're ready.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight, I stand here before you with some serious concerns about the direction this administration is taking regarding another rushed bond proposal, and I want to talk about financial responsibility. To be clear, voters in this district support upgrading outdated infrastructure and technology and making schools safe. But instead, you are wanting to build more schools, replace buildings we don't need based on projections from a demographer who has been consistently wrong before. Why should we trust these numbers now? Back in 2021, we were told that the 2021 bond would meet our district's growth needs. At the April 2023 special meeting, Dr. Z said at the rezoning meeting that a new bond would not be needed until 2029. So why now are we asking for over $430 million more? Let's take a look at what we already owe. The district currently carries $440 million in interest payments alone, half of our total principal. The financial burden directly takes away from what we should be prioritizing: increasing teacher salaries, funding new technology upgrades through responsible budgeting, and not through more borrowing. Let's address the misleading claim that taxes haven't been raised. Yes, you may not have increased the tax rate, but the district is bringing in record revenues due to skyrocketing property values and population growth. Every family in TISD is paying more. Since 2020, student enrollment is up 31%, yet property valuations are up 63%. Stop telling the taxpayers you haven't raised our taxes when we can clearly see in our bank account that we are losing money to Tomball ISD. With all of this additional money coming in, we still can't keep a balanced budget and weren't able to balance, and we ended the year last year with a deficit for the first time ever. Where is the fiscal responsibility there? Speaking of financial duties, it's not a matter of not having enough money. The problem is how we're spending. Last year I attended a board meeting where an additional $100,000 for the Ag Center was approved just for finishes. It was a line item. It was a $100,000 rounding error. That's not responsible. The district is preparing to spend significant taxpayer dollars, again, not just on unnecessary projects, but on marketing to convince voters to approve it, and also hiring companies to manage the bond money. Let's be honest, these monies are going back into some of the board's families directly. It's already been noted and it was touched on. It's time to slow down, be transparent, and be responsible with taxpayer dollars. The families in this district deserve better. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Wojdarski. Okay, the last speaker for public comments is Mr. Mark Segaloff. Mr. Segaloff here? Okay. I'm going to give it about another 10 seconds for Mr. Segaloff, and then we'll proceed forward. What's that? He was here, and he had to, okay. Mr. Segaloff was here, so I just wanted to acknowledge that. We did receive an email from Mr. Segaloff, and so I assume his comments were related to the email that he shared with the board, but I don't know. Okay, so that concludes the public comment on agenda item section. So now we're going to move into our consent agenda. So we're going to move into the voting portion of our meeting. So on the consent agenda, we will now proceed forward. Do I have a motion regarding the consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have any additional questions of the superintendent before I open the floor up for discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board on the consent agenda? Okay, hearing none, a motion has been made and it's been seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. The motion carries unanimously. Okay, moving to the considered agenda. Item A, adopt a resolution regarding school closure and reopening due to inclement weather, ICE, on January 21st and January 22nd, 2025. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
A motion was made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mrs. Salem. Do any board members have any additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before we open the floor to discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item B, Bravo. Approve the employment of professional personnel to work under a probationary contract, 1-year term contract, 1-year term dual assignment contract, 1-year contract, multi-year contract, multi-year term contract, and extension of multi-year contracts for the 2025-2026 school year at the Tomball ISD salary schedule, subject to assignment. For the positions of directors, assistant directors, principals, assistant principals, associate principals, assistant superintendents, attendance officer, coordinators, chief financial officer, chief academic officer, chief of staff, chief operating officer, dean, district translator, general counsel, managers, network administrator, programmer/analyst, school support officer, staff accountants. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mr. White. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up the floor for discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, hearing none, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item C, Charlie, consideration and adoption of resolution approving contingent fee legal services contract, including findings needed for submission of contingent fee legal services agreement and request for expedited review by the Texas Attorney General. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mrs. Salem. Do any board members have any additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open the floor for discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board? Hearing none, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item D, Delta, consideration and adoption of contingent fee legal services agreement with Thompson and Horton LLP, Island and Bonin PC, and O'Hanlon, Demarath and Castillo PC. Do I have a motion?
Second.
Motion made by Mr. White, seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open the floor for any discussion? Hearing none, is there any discussion for the board by the board? Hearing none, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Item E, Echo, adopt early childhood literacy, mathematics, and college career military readiness CCMR goals. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Mrs. Bass, seconded by Mr. White. Thank you. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open up the floor for discussion? Is there any discussion by the board for the board? Hearing none on both of those, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Item F, Foxtrot, approve the order calling school building bond election. Do I have a motion?
Second.
A motion was made by Mr. White, was seconded by Mr. McStravick. Do any board members have additional questions of the superintendent regarding this item before I open the floor for discussion? Hearing none?
Yes.
Oh, question? Yes. Jennifer.
Will the slide deck, the 100 slides or whatever it was, go
104.
go on the website for
Yes.
informational purposes?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
We can make that available in transparency, of course.
Okay.
So
and
there
then-
is a section, if I may, there is a section that you have established on Tomball ISD that has all the meetings,
Correct.
the recordings,
And we'll add it there
and you'll put it there?
so that you don't have to go necessarily and find it. It'll be for easy access as we continue, if we possibly do continue, depending on the board vote.
Yes, I want that available because I think they did a great job.
Thank you. I agree.
I know I think it was Mr. Bowles addressed the Tomball High School natatorium item, that it would be absorbed and taken
Yes.
care of.
Yes,
I
yes,
don't want
ma'am.
to use the wrong words. I don't remember mentioning timing of that.
The items would be addressed, and they are relatively early. I'm trying to think of that second to like 102, slide 102. Well, it wouldn't have been on there because it would have been
You're going to
improvements.
take care of it out of general fund?
Yes, out of general fund, but the timing would still be relatively early. There, you're on.
Timing would need to be established there, but the goal there would be that we would set us, where we talked about tonight, where you could potentially assign fund balance for that specific purpose.
Correct, so it wouldn't matter. That's correct.
The
you.
spirit of it, though,
Is that we would address the needs.
we would
were
address that. So
discussed.
let's just range it for a moment. Within the next few months, we would have an agenda item to potentially look at approving the funding for that.
Yes,
And then
sir.
from there, we would have an understanding based upon the administration's estimate of when those repairs or that work could begin.
We'll have more clarity on the extent of what they are. It's more than blocks, but ensuring that we get them to the
Okay.
level that Tomball is accustomed to.
Okay.
Certainly want for our swimmers to have what others do.
And then one last kind of just overarching question that I failed to think of last night. I know you're a long-range planner. Do you have like any sense of when the next bond might be needed? Do we have any sense of that?
Well, again, knowing that that will likely be brought up in the future. A lot of times things ebb and flow depending on a lot of factors. Knowing that some of our things have aged, knowing that this isn't a bond for necessarily fast growth. This is a bond, as you know, you heard 104 slides last night. I think it will be several years. I do believe it would not be any sooner than the pattern typically since 2013 has been every 4 years. I'm not certain you would need one that soon, but it would depend on especially elementary 13. That would probably be your driver in the future, knowing that there was not enough to put that in. And it wasn't necessary right at this time. But if the board does approve it, you've done your due diligence in going after land at this point and what site development would be, which are expenses that could be handled and should be handled now. The board, this board, and boards before this board, everyone you see on that wall, have done a wonderful job historically of preparing for the future, hence West Complex at this time. But good question.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So those were questions for the superintendent. Is there any discussion by the board for the board?
May I make a statement on my vote? Is that okay?
Sure.
I just wanted to acknowledge this decision does weigh heavily on me, the thought of being a part of laying this much debt on my neighbors, but y'all are correct that it's up to the voters. Educating and inspiring others to engage in local government has been my passion for many years. My role, as I see it today, is just to bring honesty and robust transparency to the process. I asked a lot of tough questions last night, and I will continue to do that. I wanted to thank President Pratt for giving all of us the space to have the robust conversation last night. I really appreciate that. So I intend to support this motion. I'd like us to be really careful about our phrasing. I heard a couple times last night from board members express support because it wouldn't be a tax increase. I just want to be really careful about that it's not a tax rate increase. I think we need to be really careful every time we say that. Even saying that, I think, does confuse some voters, and that's the last thing I want to do because I want the community to trust us. In fact, I prefer the phrasing that Mr. Bowles had on his slide last week. You actually put that there would be no increase to the total tax rate. Because quite frankly, if the state does buy down our M&O rate, we could have room to increase the INS part of the rate, keeping the total tax rate to what we promised of no total tax rate increase. So I think that's a more honest way to phrase it. And I noticed that you put that, Mr. Bowles, and I really respected that. Also, I personally don't care for any companies or persons who would potentially profit from this bond. to spend thousands of dollars on marketing which way to vote. Of course, I understand they legally have that right, at least currently they do, but I'm just saying, as a board member, I view it as making an unfair playing field against the people, and I personally won't support any bonds from companies that do that. I would like to just, like we talked about, just let the people vote. As many of you stated last night is your wish, and it's my wish too. Thank you.
Mr. White, I see your light is on. No comments? Okay. Mr. Lewandowski?
No comment.
No comment? Okay. Ms. Babb?
I just want to add that it is hard. It's hard whenever you have emails coming in from people that don't want you to support the bond. You have people that don't think they can live without the bond. So it isn't anything that I don't think any of us take lightly. I feel like we read through the emails and we go back and forth, and I just feel like, for me, the best way to handle it is let our community decide. I don't know of a fairer way to do it.
Mr. McStravick?
I think
Okay.
people said it all.
So I think it's important for me to voice what we as a board had discussions about. We charged the superintendent to take a look at what the facilities' needs were, and by virtue of that, a facility study committee was formed. That committee had some very clear guidelines as to what to focus on. And that committee of 25 gave us a sense of what the priorities were in their discussions. And that focus was on addressing existing facilities, programs, and departments. And part and parcel to some of our discussion over the course of the last few meetings has been certainly timing. We've all got this burden on our brow about the costs of inflation and the experiences that we've all had since, gosh, I don't know, 2019, when this kind of started ramping. The other thing that, each board member has discussed and has discerned is this idea of, a no increase to the tax rate, right? The discussion has been, well, show me the track record. What was presented to us was in bond 2007, 2013, 2017, and 2021 so far. There has not been an increase to the tax rate. Some of the information that was presented and what we've discussed a bit here tonight already is the strong credit rating that the district has. And that just doesn't happen. That's years in the making, of which the district has a practice of going out into the market, and because of that credit rating, is able to secure dollars at the best possible interest rates. And we have a practice of not taking out 40-year bonds. The max, I believe, is 25, but our average is somewhere around 15. So there's this constant activity to sell bonds, but then call them to improve our interest rates. In fact, some of the benefits that we've gotten to address some of that deficit are as a result of the earnings interest that we've had. To a lesser extent, we talked about local control. We talked about concerns that the legislature might take actions where it might require our community to have 2/3 of a vote to pass a bond. It's speculation if that will become true law or not. We talked about extreme weather conditions. We talked about what's changed since 2021 when the multi-program facilities were on the ballot. Based on what was shared, that did not pass due to about 500 votes. So what's changed? What's different? I struggled with the multi-program facilities until I personally became better educated on the weather conditions and the requirements that UIL has. And so the board was presented with that because I had a lot of questions in that area. And so safety and protection were key themes that were shared with us. This kind of hurts my heart. We had over 100 days of 100-degree or whatever the wet bulb reading was that didn't allow students to do marching band activities or ROTC or football or soccer or golf. I related to last night that my daughter's probably one of the most toughest individuals that I know. And when she says, "Dad, all the Silver Stars were throwing up on the field because it was so hot," that's a concern. When golf players are laying down, when football can't happen, or we're waking kids up at 4 a.m. So that they're at 5 a.m. practice. We did that a lot and have done that a lot. So those were some of the pieces of information that were presented to the board and discussed, as well as our own personal anecdotes. I wanted to also recall that the good work that the Facility Study Committee did, they made recommendations of $530 million. $530 million. We charged the superintendent to cut that by $100 million. $100 million. We asked the superintendent to sharpen the pencil and make sure those demographics made sense, especially for what was being considered as elementary school number 13. Elementary school number 13 is not on this bond proposal. So $530 million to $429 million. For those that have walked the floor, the halls of Tomball Intermediate, and for those that have walked into Oak Crest Intermediate, or will here in the near future walk into West Intermediate, they're going to see a massive difference in the experience. Tomball Intermediate is over 60 years old. Oak Crest is fairly recent. West Intermediate opens this year. Parity was discussed by the board, and ensuring that we've got parity. While we have been focused in previous bonds on building new schools to support the growth, the focus of this bond committee was on addressing existing facilities, of which the foundational element of Proposition A is Tomball Intermediate. The future of the current Tomball Intermediate will, based on this bond, attempt to be salvaged and utilized to address a growing population of needs. We heard that from Dr. Webb. Our special needs program, our DAEP program, our Life 18, our Connections Academy, those are growing. We don't have space. By law, it was shared with us that we have to educate these pre-K children. And as I wrap up here, the needs are here. The needs are here. It was presented to us. And for that reason, I'm in support of this bond call.
Hey, Michael. Thanks for the summary of the 3.5, 4 hours last night. But I would encourage anyone that wants to hear more people's thoughts on it, board members or Zach's presentation, to go look at last night's and video, and you can hear the discussions. I did have a question though from Martha real quick. So just for clarity's sake, I believe that the multipurpose facilities as currently considered is actually an 80-yard?
Yes, sir, that is accurate.
Okay.
We have discussed it. Now, we looked at various sizes.
Right.
50, 80, 100, but we did settle on 80. So yes, that is, I double-checked when we had a speaker, I was concerned, but that is, it was probably because initially that had been something that had been
Sure.
discussed. But we, for the same reasons I think that our speaker highlighted, that it would be in the student's best interest to have 80. So that is what has been proposed. That is what you have in this proposal.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarity.
And I actually, Zach provided some additional information on maybe a different type of facility there instead of the, I guess it's the prefabricated metal buildings.
Correct.
Engineered metal buildings, looking at something like I brought up last night, hey, what about
the
the
bubble
bubbles?
concept.
And based on the information that was provided, that's just
Yeah,
not
concerned
gonna-
with the durability,
Yeah.
the
Durability,
longevity, the-
safety.
lot of things.
The ability for it to keep going and power outages and storms and.
Correct.
And, yeah, so anyways.
But good to
appreciate-
question.
Yeah, and I
That's
appreciate.
what this board has always done. You know, what about this? What about that? Is there a way to do something at a lower cost? And I, as superintendent and as a taxpayer in this community, appreciate that.
So just echoing what everybody else has said, I'm in support of putting this to the voters, and let's see what the voters decide, because what I'm hearing is it's very positive, so.
Me too.
Michael, one more thing about
Yes, ma'am.
GIS. The community of Tomball for years have been screaming about the traffic on 2920 during drop-off and pickup, and this would satisfy. The city of Tomball would love for us to get the traffic off of 2920, and doing something different with TIS would do that. So it'd be a big win for the city of Tomball as well.
Okay, so I have a motion. The motion was made by Mr. White, seconded by Mr. McStravick. We have asked the superintendent the questions. We as a board have had our discussions amongst ourselves. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I want to come back to and thank the superintendent and her team for the great work that was done to help the board through this. I also want to acknowledge the great folks that were part of the facility study committee, particularly Gary Boudreau and Chris Sampson, and so many others that were contributors to the presentation. They put in time, they volunteered, and very appreciative of that. And so, I think the 7 here are in support of that bond call. And I would just say to each and every voter, go discern for yourself. Make your decision just as the board has made our individual decisions. So with that, item G, golf. Approve entering into a joint election agreement with Montgomery County for the May 3rd, 2025 bond election. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mr. Lewandowski. Do we have any questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board?
So I think it's important, right, that we say that, because of the size of the district and where we're located,
Yeah.
we must utilize the election process of the county. So since our district sits in 2 counties, we must, by law, utilize the election process from Harris County and Montgomery County. So that's why we see both of these on here.
Okay, any other discussion by the board for the board? Okay, a motion has been made and it's been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Item H, hotel. Approve entering into a joint election agreement with Harris County for the May 3rd, 2025 bond election. Do I have a motion? Motion made by Mr. White. Seconded by Mrs. Bass. Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent before I open it up for discussion? Okay, hearing none, is there any discussion by the board for the board? Okay, a motion has been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much. Item I, India. It is recommended that the Board of Education render a finding under Texas Administrative Code Sections 249.14 Golf that good cause did not exist as required by the Texas Education Code Sections 21.105 Charlie, 21.160 Charlie, or 21.210 Charlie for the following educator: Mary Gunderson. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. McStravick, seconded by Mrs. Salem. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, hearing none. Any discussion by the board for the board? I'll just say that each time I really don't like these, but I took a look at the box that we're in and the 4 criteria that would give the board latitude to do something different here. This did not meet that criteria. And so I think we're pretty narrow here. And so just wanted to offer that. So a motion's been made and it has been seconded. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. Thank you. Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that concludes our consent and considered agenda parts of our meeting. We will now move to public comment on non-agenda items. So we have 2 individuals that have spoken this evening. And I'm going to turn to legal counsel. Do I need to read the same statement that I read if both of those individuals heard them the first time and they acknowledged it on the website when they signed up? If you would.
Not unless you think it's necessary, but
Okay.
you can just give a reminder.
Okay. So I'll be brief and spare the lengthy discussion, but the board encourages comments about the district from members of the public. However, speakers are required to conduct themselves with proper respect and decorum in addressing the Board of Trustees and in all conduct during a board meeting. Individuals who do not conduct themselves in an orderly or appropriate manner will receive a verbal warning and may be asked to leave the meeting. I don't believe that any member that signed up requires a translator. I don't see any notes on that. Okay. We're going to use this electronic timer visible on the right side of the podium. The first 1 minute will be in green. An audible tone will then sound when 1 minute remains, and then that display will change to yellow. Another tone will sound when 10 seconds remain, and then the display will change to red. At the end of 3 minutes, an audible tone will sound to end the session. Remember, the board may not discuss or act upon any issues that are posted on the agenda. In addition, the board has adopted policies to provide prompt and equitable resolution of complaints and concerns for employees, students, or their parents, and the general public. Copies of our district policies and procedures on public comment and filing complaints are available on the district website. So first up is Mr. Dan Cranford, followed by Ms. Megan Jasper. So, Mr. Cranford, thank you for concern regarding our school district, and we will hear from you now.
Absolutely. Yeah. Father of 2 twin girls that go here. Definitely big concerns. They're young. They're going to be here a while. I had discussions with a lot of people like, man, should I really do this? Should I go up here and ruffle all these feathers? I mean, obviously I'm a vendor. I have an agenda, right? We all have an agenda, right? Some people sell computers. Some people sell security products, whatever it may be. I tried to get a hold of your department like since May of last year. I mean, these are the emails. And I heard Mr. White talk at the beginning and say that, part of the job here was to make sure that we partnered with the community. I'm a taxpayer here. I'm a father in this district. I have a vested interest. I mean, the leader of your technology department doesn't even live in the district.
Hey, I'm going to give you a warning.
I didn't call any names.
I ask you not to call out someone specifically.
I didn't call any names.
Okay, you called out a role.
Can I call out a department?
No, you can't.
Okay, the other deal is when I walked in here, there was an individual, nameless, titleless. I said, hey man, if I could save you 30% on your workers' comp plan, would you be interested? Well, I'd view that as like a spam email that I get like 30 of them a day. I'm like, dude, I'm a taxpayer here. I actually live here. Like, it would think that you'd be like, yeah, this is the guy you need to talk to. This would be the guy. Let's partner together, right? So when I talk to all these people, I'm like, man, should I do this? Should I not? It's kind of like, hey, you got nothing to lose. I mean, it's already a boxing match. If you're betting on the boxing match, who knew Buster Douglas was going to knock out Mike Tyson, right? Don King, that's the only one. Don King. You guys know, right? You guys know how this is all going. Some of you guys have been doing this for years, a long time. You know the game. Teach me the rules, and I'll figure out a way to win. But you got to teach me the rules. You got to teach me. If you're not willing to teach me, I can't help you win or me win. None of us get to win. So yeah, I mean, I've kind of covered the technology department. I mean, I'll just tell you one more story. You know, one of the presidents of one of the manufacturers I represent, we're at a show last year. He's like, man, I can't stand Michael Jordan. I'm like, dude, why? Like, everybody loves Michael Jordan. Man, I was in Chicago, I'm playing blackjack. This dude walks in with his entourage. He sits down at third base. He's splitting tens. He's winning. I lose 40 grand. To heck with Michael Jordan forever, right? So that just kind of goes to show you like how people can get different ideas about people. Like I have some ideas about people in this room, right? Because they've done things that benefit them but don't benefit other people. So that's kind of where I stand. Now you guys kind of understand the premise of where I'm coming from. And maybe we can partner together and maybe we can save the district some money. Y'all have a great night.
Okay, Megan Jasper is our next speaker. When you're ready, Ms. Jasper.
Okay, I'm ready, and this is the one I prepared for. So I'm here this evening, and it's not out of malice, but out of genuine concern for the children in this district. I hope to provide insight for the board members, administration, and superintendent regarding the increasing lack of transparency within Tomball schools. My objective is for the district to reevaluate the policies and procedures. I don't know if I'm okay to say this part, that principals and assistant principals adhere to when incidents occur at school, because I don't want to get in trouble for that.
You're good. You're good.
The issue has become so severe that it's causing widespread hostility, distrust, and frustration among parents toward their schools' principals and assistant principals. I've personally experienced a lack of transparency from my son's elementary school on multiple occasions. Additionally, I've received over 40+ unsolicited private messages from Tomball parents detailing their own experiences regarding incidents being concealed or covered up by their schools. I'm gonna do this part real quick. So when my son was in 2nd grade, a classmate in his PE class threatened to kill him and 5 other boys. Did school notify me about this? No. My son told me about it when he got home from school that day, so I immediately emailed the school so it'd be a record. They told me yes, it did happen, and the boy had been sent home after making the threat. Why did the school not notify me that a threat was made against my child's life? That was a fail on the school's part. My son told me the names of the other boys that were threatened. I had their parents' numbers, and I immediately texted them. None of them had been contacted by the school. They were livid, and they too emailed the school. That's a fail on the school's part. By the way, the child that made the threats had a long history, and this is 2nd grade, of violence. He had already stabbed a classmate in the hand with a pencil. He would stand up on his desk in the middle of class yelling, "I have anger issues, I wish I was dead." He would throw books, the teacher's heavy stapler at other kids, and would have tantrums so bad that the teacher would have to evacuate the class. Now my son is in 4th grade. He's an all-A student, soccer player, and testing for his advanced black belt. This past year, during the parent-teacher orientation, when the school was full of parents, teachers, and children, my son and 4 other children were just standing around in the hallway and were physically assaulted by another child. This kid's rampage was captured on the school's video system. He kicked my son and sucker punched him in the nose, which resulted in a bloody nose. My son was so scared to go back to school, fearful that the kid would attack him again and lie about it. He punched, this same kid punched a girl in the face. He slapped a girl in the face, knocking her glasses off and pulled her pants down, kicked another boy in the shins, and tried to pull another boy's pants down. The school did not notify the other parents about the incident. It's a fail on the school's part, and I've got more. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Jasper. Okay, so that concludes our part of our meeting for public comments on non-agenda items. With that, we're going to go into closed session from here. Okay? So we will go into closed session this evening. The Board of Trustees will convene in a closed meeting for the purposes authorized by the Texas Open Meetings Act, including but not limited to the following sections and purposes. Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with Board Attorney regarding all matters as authorized by law. Texas Government Code 551.072, deliberation regarding purchase, exchange, lease, or value of real property. Texas Government Code 551.074, deliberation regarding appointment, employment, evaluation, reassignment, duties, discipline, or dismissal of a public officer or employee, including but not limited to the superintendent's evaluation. And then Texas Government Code 551.076, deliberation regarding security personnel or devices. I want to be very clear. No voting will take place in this closed meeting. Any action the board wishes to take as a result of discussions in closed session will take place after the board reconvenes in the open meeting. It is now 6:51 p.m. Central Time. We will now move into closed session. The board will now reconvene in open meeting. The time is now 10:26 p.m. Central Time. We'll now proceed with any board comments, and so I'd open it up to my fellow board members for any comments at this time.
I'll comment. I've been to several basketball games at multiple campuses over the past couple of weeks, and it's been enjoyable to get inside the buildings and enjoyed talking to staff and seeing more of the facilities at several campuses. And it's like the mission statement with partnering with the community, so I recognize that we're opening up the facilities. I should have clarified, the basketball games have been with Farm League, other youth organizations, not TISD. So Farm League, Lodia basketball games, and it seems more so this year than previous years. I've noticed the uptick in opening up the facilities to these organizations. So that makes the kids come in and start feeling when they're younger and coming in the junior highs and feeling that space belongs to them in the community and brings in revenue too. So I enjoyed that.
Any other board members have comments? I see a red light.
I was just going to say happy Valentine's Day week and enjoy the long weekend and come back fresh and ready to rock and roll until spring break.
Thank you for putting us in the spirit with your thematic heart and your neighbor as well there. Thank you for that.
We'll pass the memo next time.
Okay,
He will have something to wear. Oh, my God. His shoes or something.
Okay, with that, if no other comment.
Amanda had one.
Oh, yeah, okay, sorry.
Sorry.
I was looking for the light.
I know, I didn't have it on, sorry. I don't think we got to take any time to talk about the FFA show and all of the kids in the community because we've been a little busy with other things, but there was a lot that went into that, and so I think that all of our ag teachers, I mean, they were up there earlier than I was getting messages that they were up there checking on animals and then late at night with the kids and helping them, so all of that. And John and Michael, were y'all the spotters for the auction? And Mark?
And Mark.
And Coco, okay.
And
So
Tina
I know
was there?
that the community, and Tina was not feeling good, so she sat out this time, but.
I was there.
That was good, but we also had both of our national signing days for the high schools for Tomball Memorial and Tomball High School, and Tina and Dr. Z and I all attended both of those, and that was really cool to watch the families come up, and the student athletes are so well-spoken. I was blown away by not only all of the things they're doing in their sport on the field or in the water, but also just whenever they were going over their academics, it was pretty impressive, and their families were so proud, so it was really neat to be a part of that. And we did catch a pep rally. Tina came with me to the Willowwood Junior High pep rally, and John and I caught the send-off for cheer. So we've been busy, but it's been fun.
With that, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
A motion made by Mr. Lewandowski, seconded by Mrs. Salem. All those in favor, please signify by raising your hand. That motion carries unanimous. Thank you very much. The meeting is now adjourned at 10:29 p.m. Central.